We'll probably have a few. We'll probably have a few stragglers come in as we get started, but I'm going to ask Representative Kimberly New if she'll open us up with an invocation, please.
Let's bow our heads. May we bow our heads. Dear Lord, be with us today. Watch over us, lead us, keep us, and guide us as we do the work of the state. Keep our eyes, mind, and heart open to what we hear today, and let us better Georgia for it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. All right. Since we have this time here today together for the purpose of the reapportionment for the last few days and the next day or so, I wanted to ask the folks from the Department of Public Safety and the GBI to come forward and just give us an update. I think it's paramount that we keep public safety at the forefront of what we do here under the Gold Dome. And I just want to call on Colonel Hitchens, if you would, to share with us what you've been doing in the interim. I know that throughout the session, y'all are real good about giving us an update about what's been going on with the Department of Public Safety and the State Patrol. And for the benefit of the members of this committee and for those who may be watching, I'd like to hear from you. And thank you for being with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us. And I'll just kind of bounce around a little bit and tell you what all we've been doing and where we are staffing-wise, and try and give you a pretty good idea where we are with the department at this point. But we've actually seen a small increase in our staffing, State Patrol, and motor carrier compliance. Right now we're at 809 troopers. It's been a while since we've been there, and we're holding fairly steady with that. We have 23 Capitol Police officers and 232 motor carrier compliance officers. And our goal is, at least in the interim, is to get to 1,000 troopers, 300 motor carrier officers, and 30 Capitol Police officers. So we're taking small steps to get that way, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that some of the stuff that this body has done for our pay has helped tremendously bring people in and keep them from leaving. So we want to thank y'all for that. We also have currently in school in our 115th class is 42 troopers. Our 116th class is 14 troopers, and those are actually the prior sworn, so they will graduate next Friday. So you see that we have a pretty good number of people that will graduate and hit the roads here in the next little bit. And we have our next school that is scheduled for January 21st to start. So we're starting to see people come in, and hopefully our numbers will continue to go up. Motor carrier has 9 in school right now, and we feel pretty good with these numbers that they'll make it to graduation.
Do you know how many you have for the school? Is the school full in January? Colonel?
Yes, we're still in the process of making conditional officers, so we don't have a number, but we're in a pretty good place. I think what was it, 90 something that we had, 90 something before we went in the middle in psych. So we're expecting somewhere around 75, hopefully. And one of the things I did want to highlight, it's been a contention of ours, our graduation rate. So we've these three schools, the 114th, 115th, and 116th, have seen a 67% up to 73% graduation rate. So I think we're seeing whatever our staff is doing down at the training center is actually paying off. Prior to that, we had a range from a graduation rate of 30% to 60%. So we're seeing a lot more of the folks that actually go in school make it to graduation, and we're very, very happy about that. Our crime suppression stats, one of the things I really wanted to harp on, since April 15th of 2021, since we started that unit, we've got 60 suspects wanted for murder that our folks have either helped with or actually caught by themselves.
That's fantastic.
I think that is a huge number.
Absolutely.
During the last Thanksgiving holiday period, that's probably one of our busiest travel days. We did have a higher number of fatalities than we'd like. Obviously, any number is too high, but we had 23 fatalities across the state. Compare that to 2022, it was 18. And during some of that time, we were handling some protests of some of our folks were pulled off the road. And I think that's just a problem that we see, throughout our work, that when we are moved from our traditional duties, we do see some negative side effects to that. But our folks worked. We had 25,000 traffic stops, almost 14,000 citations, 365 DUI arrests, 18,000 warnings, and worked, and this was just us, worked 729 crashes. So you can see that we were very busy during that time.
365 DUIs?
Yes, sir. That's during a 5-day period.
Wow.
And another thing that we're very proud of is our Office of Public Safety Support. Chairman Hitchens helped start this unit probably in 2 different ways. Once when he was a colonel, and then getting the funding for it. And just give you a little bit of information on what they've done. Just in November, we had 140 one-on-one interventions. We had 4 group interventions with 35 participants. And I'm not going to say which agencies, but they also held a post-critical incident seminar that brings in people that deal with traumatic loss. Had 14 participants in that. 125 first responders were provided information about the service of OPSS, both individually as in a group setting, and we had 300 contacts. For the year, we've had 4,779 contacts with public safety personnel, which shows there's a need for this unit out there, and they're doing a tremendous job doing it.
Absolutely.
Our mental health clinicians had 33 sessions in November. So we're very busy with what they do at the Office of Public Safety Support, and we're very thankful that we have that option of when we have somebody that is experiencing some kind of issue, we have somewhere to send them, have them evaluated, provide help, and we can get them back working. Our aviation unit, they're still very busy. One of the things that we have seen is our actual flights. The flight numbers have decreased slightly, but the hours are up, and I think that is a change in what they're actually doing. You see a lot of the flights now with protests. When we're dealing with a protest, it may be where they're flying for 3 hours or 4 hours instead of doing a photo flight or something that may be 30 minutes to go get an evidence picture or something like that. They're actually spending a lot more time in the air. We've had 85, this is the year, 85 subjects that we went out on a search and have located. That's from people doing a manhunt or somebody that's walked off that has Alzheimer's disease or got lost in the woods. We've had 4 rescue requests, and a lot of that is in like the gorge areas in North Georgia. So they've done a tremendous job. One of the things I wanted to highlight, and I have some pictures and I'll leave them. Last year's budget, we were given some money to buy new helicopters, update our fleet. We're in the process of completing that, buying 2 407s and a 412. We have one 407 and 412 in our possession now. And the 412 is a medium-duty ship that will allow us to do a lot of things that we can't do now. Fire suppression, we'll have a lot bigger bucket that we can dump water on, be able to go into the North Georgia mountains and actually rescue people and not have to rescue them, go drop them off and come back. You'll be able to, if you can fit them in the door, they say that helicopter will fly it. So we're very excited about having that. Will also allow us to fly our SWAT team, our full SWAT team, full-time members anywhere in the state. So it'll give us a chance to, instead of a 3-hour drive, maybe we can get there in a short amount of time and actually deal with the situation. But I'll pass those pictures out and let y'all look at them when we get done. Another part of our agency that's been very active is our SWAT team. And I'll give you just an example. In the year 2018, they handled 36 calls, which a lot of those are serious calls. 2023, we're at 192. So that shows you the increase. That's a 550% increase of SWAT calls that our unit's using. Yes, sir. And that's been really without an increase in personnel. That's the same personnel that's been doing it since 2018, same numbers. And just to give you an idea what they are, there's 10 barricaded gunmen, 14 murder suspects either went on a search for or doing a search warrant, 2 human trafficking situations, and 1 hostage rescue. They also were instrumental in catching one of the 3 Bibb County inmates that had escaped. So they have been very busy, and they do a tremendous job, and they never ask for any kind of accolades. They go do their job, clean the gear up, and get ready for the next one. And something y'all have probably seen a lot about is protest. We've been very busy with protests this year. DPS has assisted with 58 protests. Most of that is largely in the city of Atlanta, expending 4,077 man-hours. So that's the time that has taken us off of what our traditional duties are. to be able to deal with those protests.
Are you called upon to assist those agencies, or is that something that you?
Most of them we are called upon as an assisting agency. Some of those are actually up here at the Capitol that we take primary on protecting the property here. But most of those are helping in some form or another Atlanta PD with some of the protests they have. Y'all see them now. There's a lot of protests that are going on right now because of the war in Israel and Gaza. So we are involved with that, and we work well with our APD partners. They ask us, and we fit in and help them with whatever needs they have. And I'll just read over our crime suppression numbers that we have right now, and this is just for this year. So we have a team, 10-man team that goes out and works. We also have people on the weekends that come in and do those. We're right around 19,000 traffic stops, 415 DUIs, 189 reckless driving, and I think y'all have seen the issue with some of the street takeovers we've seen in Atlanta, and that's where we focus on that during those crime suppression details. One of the numbers that really shocks me is 298 pursuits. That's just for those times that we're out with either that unit or the weekend details that you're seeing. We see a spike in our pursuits statewide. That has been a big spike since COVID-19 started. We've got 177 wanted people, 23 stolen guns, and we've recovered 70 other guns that aren't necessarily stolen but are either abandoned or being used in the commission of a crime. Impounded 721 vehicles, 101 stolen vehicles that we've apprehended just by this unit. And again, it's 60 murder suspects. The running total since the unit's been created of stolen vehicle value is $4.8 million that we've recovered.
Ooh.
And that's really all I have as an update, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Representative Lott.
I apologize for coming in late. I would like to know, you brought up working with APD, and there was that time where you all were riding along with APD. Are you still doing those sorts of, we were doing the chases, and can you explain that to me a little bit?
Absolutely, and we do some of that with our crime suppression, but we'll also do that if there's a special need. But we have their units that'll come ride with us, and the reason we do that is they have intimate knowledge of the city of Atlanta and where their hot spots are, where their issues are, where the crime's happening, and it allows them to get in the cars with us. We're able to go out as a team and focus on certain areas, and if they do, flee or whatever, we'll help apprehend them. And it also allows us, if we bring people in, the APD officer will take charges, and it's been a great partnership to do that.
Is there still like a street racing? Is that still a street racing focus, or has that sort of calmed?
I think it's a multifaceted focus. Street racing is always in for place of our concern, but that is something that happens periodically. So it's not every weekend that we deal with those. They set them up, but that is always a concern when we do have our crime suppression unit out there. That is a focus. If street racing is identified, then that is what we turn to. We also, it's been a multifaceted approach. If there's protests happening that weekend, they deal with that. We'll go after some of these hot spots. If they had shootings in the area, we'll try and saturate those areas to provide law enforcement presence. And it seems to be a very positive event for us. I remember the weekend before we started, there were 21 shootings in the city of Atlanta for that weekend. And the weekends that followed that, there was a tremendous drop-off in the number of shootings that were happening. So we're still seeing some positive results with that. And we have a great relationship with our partners, APD. They provide us with some crime statistics that allow our folks to be able to go into certain areas and look if they're having issues with a lot of stolen cars. Our guys can go get that information and use that intel to go decide where they're going to work and where to deploy people.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Colonel, I think that you'll see that this committee overwhelmingly supports you and the department. And I can say as far as out where I live in West Georgia, I remember a time when I was a kid growing up, you get in your car in Villa-Rica and drive to Douglasville to get a pizza or go pick up Chinese pagoda to go. You didn't drive that 12 miles without seeing troopers on both sides of the road, running radar, enforcing the traffic. And, I can remember when you had the campaign, Colonel Hitchens, Senior, you probably remember this, the 55 fast lane blues. And if you were going 65, you got a ticket.
That's right.
And nowadays, our troopers are busy doing other things. They're working traffic. They're doing a lot of other things. And so, I'm proud to be a part of that study committee, that working group, to help you get your numbers up, because it's proof's in the pudding. When you got troopers out there that are enforcing the speed limit and writing tickets, it slows cars down. And when you slow cars down, you're going to lessen the accidents and fatalities. That anybody can see that. So I think you'll find that this committee overwhelmingly supports what you're trying to do. And we stand ready to help you in any way that we can.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And as y'all know, we have great employees. Our troopers, motor carrier and Capitol police officers, they give 100% effort every time they put this uniform on. And we as a command staff are very proud to be able to represent them when we go out and speak about the great work that they do.
Absolutely. Colonel Hitchens.
I just wanted to make a statement. I think you did a great job here today, and it's very obvious you had a very positive role model to. And your mother always says you were her favorite trooper. So.
I'll say he did have a good mama. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Anyone else?
Well, I'll say it publicly, I did have a good role model.
Thank you very much, Billy. Appreciate you being here.
I'll pass these pictures and y'all just see.
Please do. Thank you. All right, we're going to have Deputy Director Dutton, if you want to come forward from the GBI. And again, all this meeting is today is to just keep public safety at the forefront of what we do, and give them some opportunity to highlight some of the good things and maybe wishes, desires, or needs of their department. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee, for allowing us to be here today, or allowing me to be here today to kind of update you on where we are as the GBI. The director sends his regrets that he's unable to be here today. He was actually traveling. He had a Department of Justice meeting in Washington based on some threat updates, things of that nature. But he wanted me to make sure that all of you knew that if you need him, he's available. I'm available, and of course Nellie, our primary contact here at the Capitol, is always available to answer any kind of questions. I'll point out, so I am the assistant director for GBI. I actually took a little bit of time away and came back after Chris Hosey was named as the director. I'll say back in 2015, 2016, my responsibilities with GBI was the legislative liaison for the agency. And from the standpoint of the work that we were trying to get accomplished, and the work that was presented to many of the committees, and this being one of the primary committees, I wanted to tell you that I appreciate what you do for public safety for the state of Georgia, but then also what you've done for us. It does not go unnoticed. That's kind of a learning curve for a lot of executives in leadership positions within the agency, and we recognize that, and Director Hosey and I have talked about that quite a bit. So we really do appreciate the continued support with that. So I'll move right into the GBI. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I see a few new ones, so I'll hit some areas just to kind of explain the agency itself and what we're comprised of and how we operate. So we are the state's criminal investigative agency. We have approximately 900 employees. We have 3 primary divisions. One of those is GCIC. The other is the investigative division, and the other is the crime lab. GCIC is simply the criminal history database for the state of Georgia. They currently have over 4 million criminal history records that they're responsible for maintaining and allowing access to criminal justice agencies, officers on the side of the road, so that they have the ability to check criminal history records that license plate interface, the whole bit. That is a big job for them. It's a 24/7 operation to make sure that that's working. In addition to criminal history records, they do the protective order registry. So they're in the neighborhood of just under 200,000 protective orders that are on the program at any given time. The sex offender registry for the state of Georgia, mental health records, and then also the fingerprints as it relates to background checks for not necessarily criminal justice employment, but any type of employment that requires that. Those guys do a tremendous job. You're dealing with technology, you're dealing with legacy systems that have to meet federal requirements through NCIC, which is a National Crime Information Center run by FBI. And that's what allows the interface to happen across the entire United States. So as long as that program's working, information can be exchanged and shared across the country. The other division I mentioned was the crime lab. Staffing there is around 209 scientists. They serve as the state's crime lab. There's no other crime labs in Georgia, so this is where everything has to go. Our primary lab is in headquarters. It is an all-service lab. We have 6 regional labs throughout the state. They do not do all disciplines. There's variations of the work that they do. That covers Macon, Pooler, Augusta, Cleveland, Moultrie, and Columbus. The 7 disciplines that the lab is responsible for is chemistry, firearms, forensic biology, which is the DNA section, impressions, latent prints, toxicology, and trace evidence. I would say the busiest of any, or the heaviest caseload of submissions is in our chemistry, which is for drug identification, firearms, and forensic biology, the DNA evidence. There is an existing backlog. That's been a topic for a long period of time as to dealing with that backlog. We consider anything older that's sitting in in a pending status. Anything over 30 days is what we consider as in a backlog. I can report that those numbers are going down. We have seen a steady increase. It's incremental over the past few years. A lot of that has to do with getting more scientists that we've been blessed to receive, but also getting them trained and getting them on the bench so that they can actually do the work. Within the crime lab is also our medical examiner's office. That's where we have that's where the autopsies are performed. We are allocated for 19 doctors. We currently have 12. Now that's much, much better than where we were before. A couple of years ago, we had gotten down as few as 9 doctors, and were provided the opportunity to hire 3 more. We've gotten them on board. And I can tell you, the medical examiner's office has they've taken it serious from the standpoint of recognizing the responsibilities that they have, but then also promoting their program. Medical examiners across the United States, there's only 500 average, approximately, for the entire United States. So that is a small pool of doctors, potential candidates that can come to work and do this type of work. Our medical examiner's office recognized the fact that we got to start early and we got to go deep. So essentially they've gone out and recruited in medical colleges to get interest in the program. As a result of that, with help from the legislature, the loan forgiveness program as it relates to enticing doctors to move into this area and move to Georgia to do this type of work is actually working. Doctors are, according to industry standards, they're supposed to be doing about 250 autopsies per year per doctor. Currently, they're about 340. A couple of years ago, it was much higher than that. We see that descending, but hopefully things will continue in that way. we're very excited about the opportunities and the headway that they're making in filling these positions for these vacant doctors, or these vacant doctor positions. Then our third division is the investigative division. That's where we have, that's where our agents, analysts, the enforcement section of the agency. Our staffing levels are currently about 311 agents. That's pretty high for GBI. It's been a long time since we've hit that 300 mark. A lot of that has to do with the addition of agents as it related to gang enforcement, cold case, positions that were actually funded, that we were able to put more boots on the ground to make that happen. The investigative division covers all 159 counties. We have 15 regional offices throughout the state. We have 4 regional offices that kind of cover the corners. 4 drug enforcement offices, which are task force type operations that involve sheriffs and chiefs of those particular locations that help direct and promote the drug enforcement activities there as well. So those have been very effective for us. Our gang enforcement effort kicked off in 2019 with additional funding to get that up and running. They've been very successful in the metro Atlanta area and have expanded to middle Georgia. So there's a lot of good work going on with the gang task force. GBI also has the state's Intelligence Counterterrorism Fusion Center. It's one of 81 across the United States. Their activity has picked up quite a bit as a result of what the Colonel mentioned earlier regarding the war in Israel as it relates to activity in the state of Georgia. They are embedded with FBI and all of the national partners to make sure that there's an open line of communication as to any type of potential threats that are received across the country or across the world that may be of impact to Georgia. So they're steady on that. We also have our child exploitation squad. Their casework or tips have increased exponentially. The work that they do in child exploitation cases is very technical and it's very complex. It takes a lot of time. That would not be as successful as it is if it weren't for the task force environment associated with it. There's many jurisdictions across the state of Georgia that are part of that task force. It requires training, recertifications, but then the technical expertise in actually working these type cases. Then of course we have our human trafficking and labor trafficking task force that's up and operational. They've been successful in rescue operations of labor trafficking victims as well as sex trafficking victims. Of course, and we've been doing this since 2016, and actually keeping track of it is the officer use of force cases or officer-involved shooting cases. Unless something's happened in the last little bit, our numbers are at 96 officer-involved shootings throughout the state of Georgia that GBI has been requested to investigate. That's pretty on track with where it has been historically. I would estimate 2 to maybe 3 officer-involved shootings each week is typically what we've seen. I don't see much of a change as it relates to that. Okay. All right, I'll move into, when Director Hosey came on, he set the priorities that he wanted to make sure that we could address throughout the year, and these are the priorities that he had presented to the governor and to the governor's office a couple of months back. And a lot of it is the staffing as it relates to the medical examiner's office. So the doctors do phenomenal work. They're able to move through their cases as well as possible, but there's support staff that goes along with that. Typically, just as an example, a medical examiner, typically there should be 2 to 3 death investigator specialists that accompany them that allows them to move through their work. So we're asking for 6 more death investigator specialists in the upcoming year. That allows the doctors to do the doctor work. They're doing the front end work. They're making sure evidence is handled as it should be and submitted as it should be, and then they move on to the next case. We also, GBI back in 2015 took on the responsibility of child fatality review, and that is a committee that studies child deaths with the intent to better understand what the circumstance, or what are the causes and effects and ways to prevent it, and educate the public on things of that nature. That is a program that's associated with the medical examiner's office. We did not, when we took on the project, there's additional staffing resources that were requested, so we've asked for some positions to support that mission as well. As far as the crime lab goes, we're looking for sustained funding for 14 scientists that we were able to pick up last year, and the staff that goes along with that as well too. So that would be your evidence technicians and things of that nature. Another ask, primarily on the investigative division side, is this is also the support of agents. In many of the cases that we find ourselves working are becoming more complex and more time consuming with social media, technology, things of that nature. A case that may have been a burglary case or an assault case, sexual assault case, becomes very much more involved and complicated as it relates to evidence collection. So in addition to the standard crime scene processing work that's done, there's a lot of digital forensic work that has to be done. We have what we call DFIs, digital forensic investigators, who do the technical work, the specialty in exploiting information or extracting evidence from electronic devices in support of those cases. They are heavily used in our computer crime or child exploitation squad. We also have financial auditors. These are typically the accountants that do the detailed work as it relates to fraud cases. And then also our criminal intelligence analysts. They are primarily located at the Fusion Center, but we do have them located in several work units that are specific to, you name it, they do it. So if it's analyzing telephone records, pattern analysis, social media research, identifying, locating bad guys, suspects, things of that nature, they're instrumental in making that work. So we're looking to get them a $4,000 raise for each of those. That's been submitted. We're also responsible for the criminal street gang database. That program has accomplished phase 1, which is the build out and inputting information. Now we're in phase 2, which is the connectivity to other local agencies to actively use this system. It's going to require a lot of auditing and training associated with that, so we're looking for personnel to keep that moving as well too. One of the issues with the medical examiner's office is staffing. Most of the doctors that we have, they want to be in the metro Atlanta area. So we're recruiting to try to get for Macon and for Pooler. But as it is now, to incentivize or to help in getting the doctors to Macon, we have been approved and we have been paying a supplement to make that work. We're looking to do the same thing for Savannah. They go through a rotation to do that, so there's a funding request to make that happen as well too. Our cold case unit, so they're up and running. They're currently looking at 19 cases that are under review from the Coleman-Baker Act. They have 6 requests that have come from family members, and they're currently working on 13 cases that they pulled on their own. And most of these, well, all of these would be GBI cases that we've had located throughout the entire state. There's some technology that is needed for that unit, so we're asking for funds to cover that, as well as funding to cover genealogy testing, which, if anybody's watched the news lately with a lot of the solving of unsolved cases or cold cases from years ago, the technology is advancing at a rapid pace. It does cost money to make that happen, but there's a lot of success that has come from that, and we want to make sure that we've got funds allocated to make sure that we can address those issues. And of course, we've got some one-time expenses related to updating crime scene equipment, UAS systems, robot upgrades for our EOD, for our bomb squad. Those can be kind of a hefty price tag, but we have to keep those up and running. I will say that our budget, and I'll say this, and I was talking to Director Hosey about this, is a priority for the agency as well as to is hopefully not have to have a budget cut. And I say that from the standpoint of GBI operates very lean. About 82% of our budget is personnel cost associated with that. So when we're faced with budget cuts, typically that means cutting vacant positions to start with, and then moving down the line from there to the less critical positions. It's expensive to run crime labs. Those are expensive buildings. The maintenance, the service contracts associated with those. Throughout the years, GBI was hit with a reduction in funds for those. So is trying to stay on top of keeping systems operating and running, keeping equipment up to date, calibrated as it should be, so that we're making good positive case or good quality cases in the crime lab. It's been an exercise in trying to use best judgment and trying to figure out what you're paying for. So from that standpoint, there's no fat in the agency, and it's we've got a lot of really good people that are excited to do the jobs that they do. Our retention rates they could be better. They're not terrible. A lot of the issues that we have are primarily once we've gone through an interview cycle or any interview process is the passing the background investigations, and a lot of it having to do with histories of drug use or maybe even potential issues on polygraph examinations. Not so much exams, but more so just the historical use. And as times change, as legalization of marijuana across the country is an issue, out-of-state candidates, that's something that we're going to need to address at some point in the future. But that's all I have. I'm glad to answer any questions or elaborate further on anything else.
Number 27, who is that now? To my good friend and fellow undertaker,
Yeah.
Representative Mathis.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you addressing some of the issues. I'm old enough to remember when autopsies were done in funeral homes.
Absolutely.
Dr.
I
Larry
was there.
Howard used to fly down and do the autopsies and that sort of thing. And I've been doing this over 50 years, so I've seen it evolve into a lot of different things. And I do appreciate this committee and the General Assembly trying to address the issues you have with the forensic side out there with your medical examiners and your death investigators. We've made great strides in that. I would like to say thank you to the coroners of this
Absolutely.
state too, because there's only 5 counties that have medical examiners, and they all have death investigators through Fulton, Cobb, Gwinnett, and DeKalb. Clayton County, I'm not sure exactly how they operate their office, but anyway, the rest of us are coroners, and that is what a death investigator does, is basically what a coroner does, to present this evidence up to the crime labs, whether it be in Macon, Pooler, or wherever in Atlanta. But you have made great strides, and I know Ashley Garris, she comes down and talks to us at the training center. So what my point is here, I think as we work and evolve, we found that the coroner system is a good thing because we have so much of a shortage for these doctors to come in and do.
Absolutely.
And we know that you just mentioned that we're going to try to hire more death investigators. So if we can keep the coroner system strong and we have competent people in these coroner's offices over these counties, it will just only assist us in keeping costs down, and we can have the professionalism that we need. So that I appreciate everything you said and done. And I went through that stretch where we had such a backlog. It was taking 2 weeks to get folks and loved ones back home to do these autopsies and things. And I know these doctors will work crazy. I do hate that they don't want to come to Macon or Savannah to live. If they'd come down there and live in Cochran in my area, they would love it. I
I'm
can
sure.
tell you, they'd be in heaven. Up here, I don't know how anybody would want to live up here in Atlanta. But I'm a country boy. But I do appreciate the collective effort of the state government and its committees and the General Assembly trying to work with y'all, because it does come down to this. We want to get these things right. We want to make sure if it's a criminal activity, we get these folks behind bars. We want to make sure that we do the things, but most importantly, the victims, the loved ones, they deserve, the utmost dignity, and these families have to have the closure, and it is tough. So I think if we keep working together to get these systems working together, not every county can have a medical examiner. It's very, very expensive to have that.
Absolutely.
But we can have competent coroners, we can have competent people that work in these areas that can make this thing work together collectively. And I do appreciate what the GBI does when we're working cases together. And I thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, sir. And to add to that, just from the standpoint of the medical examiner's office, and I've been able to spend quite a bit of time with them and attended some of their training, coroner's training, and they brag about the fact that they have the best relationship with the coroner system in Georgia. They know that that is essential to them being able to do their job as well as they can do it. And you're 100% right from the standpoint of deaths that happen across the state. The folks that are closest to the issue are really going to understand what's going on.
Yes.
And if there is great communication between the coroner's office and the medical examiner's office and explaining what's being seen, what's uncertain, what do we know, medical history, that helps so much in figuring out what level of autopsy may be performed or may be needed or not needed.
That's right.
And there's a lot of programs across the state that has to do with the research on different types of deaths, and the coroner's office is very much trained, or the training is in progress for that. So that is a appreciated partnership, and we continue to make that a priority for us as well.
I appreciate that. And just one follow-up, I just want to make sure that we have competent coroners across the state.
Absolutely.
Just like the State Patrol wants to have competent officers out here working these roads, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely.
And
Training is a big part of the medical
Absolutely.
examiner's office.
Absolutely.
And
we need quality people.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Mathis. Colonel Hitchens.
I had a couple of budget questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you had a great role model yourself over
did.
at GSAC when you were assistant.
I most certainly did, sir. Not quite my dad, but almost.
Well, it was very obvious to us last year. I got confronted with in our budget hearings with some problems that arose in the GBI, particularly with GCIC. And when the gun licenses were suspended and nobody had to get a gun license to carry a gun, I think you lost about $5 million. And my understanding was that we put that money back in the budget, but then it was part of the disregards. And I was wondering if that money has been supplemented or opened up yet, so that I was afraid that you weren't going to be able to maintain GCIC.
Well, if you want to say fortunately from the standpoint of we currently have vacancies, trying to backfill those vacancies. That has offset some of the spending as it relates to that. However, that funding was not returned. Governor's office has it. They said they have it and are aware of the circumstances. I think a lot of it is going to depend on what we see, what stats are going to show us over the past year as to how much of an impact these licenses has impacted those user fees to fund GCIC. Because to the Colonel's point, the GCIC is actually funded through user fees. So it's the fees associated with getting criminal history checks, fingerprint checks. If that diminishes, then the personnel cost, the operating cost, the technical services associated with that is greatly hindered.
And I was very concerned that same thing occurred with some of the positions that we allocated in the crime lab. They were disregarded. I think it was about 17 scientists that, and I'm hopeful maybe in supplemental this year we may be able to restore some of that funding.
Yes, sir. That's what we've asked for is the continued funding. We moved ahead with the hiring. And that's one of the challenges with a scientist. It takes 12 months to train a chemistry scientist to be able to actually start working cases. A firearms examiner takes 2 years. So they're on the payroll for 2 years learning how to do this through our training program. And at the point, the 2 years that they've completed that, then they can start to work. So it is a long process to get them, once they're hired, into a position to start seeing some results.
And one more, I ought to know this, but I've never heard it. I know that the FBI office moved from where it was when you were over there. Was the GBI able to move with them to keep that connectivity?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So when FBI built their new building in that same general area, they did carve out space for the Fusion Center to move in. So that was a cost-saving measure for us, but we also saw it as an opportunity to stay better connected with our intelligence partners as it relates to primarily the counterterrorism mission, but it goes deeper than that. There's a lot of other issues and cases and things that become very very important, and we're in a position to address those.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Colonel, for those questions. Chairman Jaspers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, it's glad to see you back, Scott.
Good to see you, sir.
Enjoyed working with you many times. You piqued my interest on one thing you said. And it came in a meeting we were in a different committee. Is the cyber crime thing, is that in your house?
It is, actually, and that was one of the units that I did not mention, but yes, absolutely, our Cyber Crime Center.
So individuals in our communities have, I mean, good gosh, it'll take you 100 people, I guess, because we all get all these questions about it. So our sheriffs will bring you in for their
Yes, so
issue.
traditionally, if there is an issue that's related to a crime that has been committed against an individual, a fraud case where they've been duped out of several $1,000s, then the appropriate action would be to report it to their sheriff, police chief, and at that point, a request would be made to the GBI to participate. There's a couple of steps associated with how they try to address those. Unfortunately, there is a lot of that goes on. There's a lot of it that really doesn't get addressed, but they'll look at every one of them to make a determination if they think there's an end result that would produce prosecution.
Sure. How many folks do we have in that world? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it's there are 6 agents assigned plus supervisors.
Okay.
And they are actually cross-designated with our federal partners. So U.S. Secret Service has a role in cybercrime as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So they're cross-designated, deputized to help work those cases, but it also helps in the transition of if a case becomes international, then they're in a position to hand those cases off back and forth. So they do have that luxury.
Yeah,
to
so
do
those
that.
ones that are threats against Georgia, someone in this room, or come through that pathway.
If it is a cyber crime issue, yes.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
Enjoy
sir.
that. I'm glad you're back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for those comments and questions. Colonel Hitchens.
And playing off of that, I know NSA has now moved down to Fort Gordon, and if I'm not mistaken, the GBI has taken advantage of some of the training opportunities to train their people for the world-class people that work at NSA that monitor communication traffic throughout the world.
Absolutely. The model of the Cyber Center being, and that was by design, that it would actually be located in Augusta and affiliated with Augusta University, but its proximity to the military base there. So best practices, new technology, cross-training, things of that nature, that is part of the program there as well, too. Another piece of that was recognizing that cyber is an up-and-coming, it's a criminal method, and it's not going away, but it's also to generate interest in college students in pursuing that career in cybersecurity as well, too. So there's that partnership as it relates to the training.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I did have one I'd like to ask you,
Yes, sir.
Deputy Director. You said there were 96 officer-involved shootings that the GBI was called in to investigate. Any way you could share with the committee as far as those findings on those cases, whether that was justified in action?
With those, well, I can tell you historically, most of the cases that we investigate are reasonable use of force cases. There are some, and you can probably count them on one hand, that do constitute criminal charges against the officer. But like I said, that's on one hand. The rest of them are, a lot of them are still pending, but from the standpoint of reasonable use of force, yeah, it would appear that way based on the fact that the district attorney has made a determination not to prosecute or send it to a grand jury, and it's a no bill.
I figured that was the answer you would give. I just wanted to ask that. But I
Absolutely.
certainly appreciate you being here and sharing this information. Colonel Hitchens, thank you for being here with us today. And if there being no further business before this committee and no other questions or comments, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.